Good afternoon. I have just completed a friendly lunch with President, in the course of which we had a very on our mutual relations and on the future for Colombia. Our discussion covered many topics. We have, for instance, discussed the investment in trade. Pardon me. Thank you. Our discussion covered many topics, including, for instance, the investment in trade of Britain with Colombia. We discussed human rights, and I have welcomed the steps that have been taken under President Pastrana's government to make sure that the police and the army are there to uphold human rights, not to break human rights, and that there is no culture of impunity anywhere within Colombia. Britain is funding the UN Human Rights Office in Colombia. We are very pleased to be both providing that funds and delighted with the cooperation we are receiving from President Pastrana and from his government. But of course the focus of our discussion was on Plan Colombia, to bring peace to Colombia and also to make sure that the drugs trafficking from Colombia is brought to an end. I very much welcome the vision and the courage that President Pastrana has shown in preparing an ambitious program to make sure that there is an end to the drugs production in Colombia and an end to the violence within his country. The problem of Colombia in relation to the drugs trafficking is not just a problem in Colombia, it is our problem as well. All of us in the world are at risk when drugs are produced and drugs are put into the world's drugs trade. All of us also suffer when the environment of the rainforest is put at risk by those who are chopping down the rainforest to plant the coca leaf, or who are putting the precursor chemicals into the rivers of Colombia. That is why Britain is keen to support President Pastrana and to make a reality of Plan Colombia. We have discussed the ways in which the international community can be of assistance, and we look forward to the pledging conference in Spain in July to provide international support for the plan. Britain is keen to play a full part, and particularly we want to make sure that the countries of Europe and of elsewhere in the world, North America and some of the neighbors in Latin America, also share in this project. I have offered to President Pastrana that Britain will take the lead in hosting in London a gathering of officials and technical experts in advance of that pledging conference in July, so that we can together discuss the details of Plan Colombia and work out how each of us can best contribute to it. I would hope that we will be able to bring together North America and Europe and the European Commission to agree on how we can all share in finding a solution to what is a common problem for all of us. And in that spirit, I would now invite President Pastrana to talk about Plan Colombia, about his hopes for Colombia, and the help that we can provide.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much. I think there's not too many more things to say after you, Mr. Secretary. I apologize. No, it's good. We came here to have the support, and we said to Secretary Cook about how important it is for us your support in Plan Colombia. As we've said, we have one common enemy, that is narco-trafficking. And unfortunately, narco-trafficking is financed the violence in my country, but at the same time indirectly in Europe and in the whole world. And that's why we are promoting what we have called a Plan Colombia, a $7.5 billion plan for the next 3 years. We Colombians, we hope to support this plan with near $4 to $5 billion. And the rest we're asking for the international community, that in a common effort we could fight this enemy that is narco-trafficking. As Secretary Cook said, it's very important for the meeting that he's going to gather here in London, inviting the members of the European Union, starting the social projects, the alternative development projects that we're going to take to the donors table in Madrid on the first week of July. All these projects basically are concentrated in social development, alternative development programs for the illicit crops in our country, and the strengthening of our institutions. And that's once again we want to thank your support, Mr. Secretary, and we know that with your help and the help of the European Union also, we will be in the front line in this fight against drugs.
Mr. President, bienvenido, está en su casa con nosotros. We are greatly honored, Mr. President, by your presence here this afternoon and your kindness in agreeing to give this Millennium Years Canning Lecture. It's particularly fitting that the President of Colombia should deliver this particular lecture, since the relationship between Canning House and your country, Mr. President, is a very warm one. In January of 1998, we were awarded the Orden de Boyacá, and in our Salon Colombia in Canning House, we have the Orden, the portrait of George Canning, and the portrait of Francisco Paula Santander, El Hombre de las Leyes, side by side in the Salon Colombia.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I also say we're delighted to welcome President Pastrana and his team to London, albeit for a brief visit, and I know that he got off a plane this morning and his agenda has been absolutely packed all day. But we think tonight is a really special opportunity because there are many with interests and have an interest in Latin America, and they wanted to come and listen to you tonight, and so we deeply appreciate you being with us here. This is a particular special setting for the second of the Canning lectures. His portrait looks down on us from the wall opposite, and George Canning, I'm sure, is known to this audience. He played an active role as Foreign Secretary back in the 1920s, particularly in recognizing the independence of the new Latin American states, including Colombia. And Colonel J.P. Hamilton had the task of reporting to George Canning in 1824-25 on whether the Colombian government of the time was popularly supported and whether it was able to resist attack.
I am truly honored for the invitation to give the Canning Lecture at the dawning of the new century. In the past, well-known representatives of the arts and sciences had given this lecture. The mere mention of two great Hispano-Americans, such as Salvador de Madariaga and Jorge Luis Borges, is eloquent evidence of the high academic level of those who have preceded me in this lecture. The Canning House has been the natural home of the ties of friendship between the United Kingdom and the Iberian and Ibero-American communities in Great Britain for the past 60 years. I take great pride in knowing that my country's special policy of rapprochement and support to the Canning House has translated into material and tangible realities. The Salon Colombia, presently in operation at the Belgravian facilities, is a symbol of that special relationship. It is equally important for me in my capacity as Latin American president, that this institution was named after George Canning, who did, as you said, Mr. Minister, so much for our countries in the early decades of the 19th century in the community of free and democratic societies. Canning's interest in strengthening ties between the United Kingdom and the new American republics, it's similar to the interest shown by our Libertador Simón Bolívar in his letter to Antonio José de Sucre when he says, "An alliance with England has more political importance for us than the Battle of Ayacucho." Third, Canning and Bolívar had different interests. Besides strengthening mutual relations, both sought a policy contrary to absolutism, inspiring civil liberties and open to trade and the internationalization of the economy. Great Britain and Colombia still find common ground in that same vision. When one lands on British soil, history, with all its drama and evolution, becomes evident before our very eyes. Ever since the early days of representative democracy in the 13th century to date, Great Britain has been and still is living proof that a civilized society is not built overnight. Its development is not a miracle of one day, rather the summation of many crises, of time of apogee and depression, and swinging between times of peace and confrontation. The United Kingdom history has taught the world many lessons of courage and wisdom. Colombia, like many other nations in our contemporary world, has a long and complex history full of successes and failures. Much has yet to be done on the basis of our own values, political culture, and institutions, all forget amidst more difficulties and obstacles than any other country in Latin America. Like other countries, Colombia has lived extended periods of peace during which it planted the seeds of its development. Yet, those years have been followed by violent confrontations that threatened to destroy its very foundations.